Page 268. The Age of Baramis. You have too much hair, Darius. Babu had been hanging around Stephen Kellner too much. He was trying to fit a white cap over my dark Persian curls, but it kept slipping off. Fariba Khanum, he called down the hall for Mahmud to bring him something, but I didn't recognize the word. Mamu appeared in my bedroom doorway, smiling at the cap sitting crooked on my head. Here, Maman. She stuck 3 hairpins in her mouth, bunched up my hair to stuff it under the cap, and pinned everything in place. Perfect. Merci, I said. Mamu squeezed my cheeks. You are so handsome, and laughed. Babu took me by the shoulders and looked me up and down. I was wearing the white shirt he and Mamu had gotten me for Nowruz, and my one pair of khaki dress pants. They were the same color as all the walls in Yazid. I wondered if I would blend into the buildings and appear as nothing but a bloating face. Babu tugged on my collar to straighten it. You look very nice, Darius-chan. Thank you. I didn't feel nice. I felt like I was on an away mission disguised to infiltrate and observe another culture without violating the prime directive. I felt like an actor playing the role of the good Zoroastrian grandson. I felt like a tourist. But Babu fussed with my cap a little more, even though Mamu had already gotten it settled. He looked me in the eyes from time to time like he was looking for something, and thought maybe, just maybe, I had it in me after all. Babu hummed to himself as he smoothed out my shoulder seams and rested his hands on them. I am glad you are here to see this, Darius-chan. Maybe I wasn't such a tourist. Maybe this was something Babu and I could share, our very own Star Trek. Maybe it was. Me too. The Atashkadeh is Yazid's Zoroastrian fire temple. It wasn't like a mosque or church with services every week. It was only used for special celebrations, but it had a fire burning inside all the time. The fire inside the Atashkadeh has been burning for 1,500 years. According to Babu, it came from 16 different kinds of fire, including lightning, which was pretty amazing if you thought about it. We were all in light clothes, Mom, Lala, and Mamu, with white headscarves and manteau, and me, Dad, and Babu in our white caps. Even Stephen Kellner, noted secular humanist, dressed up to go. The fire temple wasn't as tall as the Jama Mosque or even the Badgir of Daladabad Garden. It was only 2 stories high, surrounded by trees. A still, perfectly circular pool mirrored the cloudless blue sky above us. Wow. What the Atashkadeh lacked in height, it more than made up for in majesty. 5 arches held up by smooth white columns fronted it, and a Faravahar was carved onto the top. The winged man shone in unblemished stone stained blue and gold. I wondered how it stayed so vibrant in the Yazid sun, which bleached everything else to blinding white. When we parked the car, Mamu let me and Lala out from behind her, but then she got back in. You go ahead, she said. Babu's not feeling very well. I looked past her at Babu, who had gone pale despite the golden sun pouring in the car windows. It must have been bad if he was going to stay behind. He had been so excited to show us the Atashkadeh. Mom led us up the wide stone steps to the temple and showed us where to slip our shoes and socks off. It was silent inside, a silence so intense it squeezed my head like a too small hat. Even Lala could tell this was the kind of place to keep quiet. A tinted glass portal separated us from the inner sanctum, where a giant bronze chalice held the ancient fire. I thought about Babu waiting in the car. How many times had he come here to see the dancing flames? How many times had his grandparents stared into the same fire? And every other Barami, going back generation after generation, through revolutions and regime changes, wars and invasions and pogroms. How many of them had stood where I was standing? And how many would there be in years to come if Babu was right and the age of Baramis was coming to an end? Standing in that temple, staring into the fire that had been burning for hundreds of years, I felt the ghosts of my family all around me. Their soft presence raised the hair on my arms and tickled at my eyelashes. I wiped my eyes and stood there, lost in the fire. I knew that Babu was going to be one of those ghosts soon, too. No one had to say it out loud. Babu went straight to bed when we got home. Mamu stayed with him. I heard their soft voices through the closed door. I found Mom in the sunroom with 1 photo album on her lap and 3 more on the couch next to her. Mom? Come on in. She stacked the other albums to one side so I could sit next to her. You okay? Yes, she said. Her voice was hoarse, like she had been crying, just looking at some old pictures. She had the album open to show to photos of her in America. Her college graduation, her bridal shower, her citizenship ceremony. Is that Dad? Yeah. At the bottom of the page was a photo of a young Stephen Kellner standing in front of a bright green door. Apparently, the Ubermensch had once been an Uber hippie, complete with a scruffy beard and hair that reached past his shoulders. Imagine that. Stephen Kellner with long hair, in a ponytail even. Babu hated that hair. Your dad cut it to make him happy. He nearly had long hair in all our in all of our wedding pictures. Mom smirked. God, can you imagine? Your dad would never be able to live it down. There was a photo of Mom and short-haired Dad on their wedding day, with Mamu and Babu on either side of them, and one of them at a fancy restaurant overlooking the river, and Mom with a huge baby bump, and Dad lying on the couch with the little baby on his bare chest. Dad's arms curled so gently around Lala, who had her little legs tucked up under her stomach and her face nestled in the hollow of his collarbone. She was so tiny back then, I said. That's you, sweetie. What? I looked closer. Mom was right. It was hard to believe the little potato sack on Dad's chest could be me. It was hard to believe how content Stephen Kellner looked, cradling me in his arms, his lips resting in a kiss on my fine baby hair. It was not very dark and curly yet. I wished we could go back to that, to a time when we didn't have to worry about disappointments and arguments and carefully calibrated intermixed ratios, when we could be father and son full time instead of 47 minutes a day. We couldn't even manage that anymore. This is my favorite photo of you two, she says. He could always get you to sleep, no matter what. Even when you were teething, a few minutes on his chest and you were out like a light. You loved it when he held you. Mom traced potato me with her fingers. Look how much he loves being a dad. Mom's voice quavered. I wrapped my arm around her and laid my head against her shoulder. I'm sorry, Mom. Page 274. Magnetic containment. I wrapped Sorab's cleats in the ad section of one of Mamu's Yazdi news magazines, covered with pictures of scruff-faced men in button-up shirts advertising real estate or plastic surgery or new cars. It was our last game. I was not okay with that. I was not okay with saying goodbye to Sorab, and I kind of hated Mom and Dad for bringing me to Iran, knowing that I'd have to say goodbye. I left a few minutes early, so Sorab could try on his cleats before we headed to the field. But when I got there, a strange vehicle was parked outside his house, a tiny grayish-brown hatchback that had been waxed to such a shine I sneezed when I caught the sun's reflection off the front fender. I knocked on Sorab's door and then shifted the box of cleats. I wasn't sure what to do with it, whether I should hold it out in front of me or hide it behind my back or tuck it under my arm. There was no answer. I knocked again, a little louder. Sometimes Sorab or his mom couldn't hear me knocking if they were in the bathroom or on the phone or out in the backyard. Maybe they were enjoying another ping-pong table full of romaine lettuce and Babu's sikanja bean. I gave up on the front door and picked my way around the side of the house, tiptoeing between the square stones that constituted the Rizai's landscaping. But the backyard was empty. No Sorab, no lettuce, just the ping-pong table folded upright and pushed against the wall of the house. It rattled on its hinges, a rigid green sail tossed in the stiff Yazdi breeze. I rubbed the flat of my thumbnail against my bottom lip. I wished I had some tassels. I wondered if Sorab and his mom had gone out, if they had forgotten I was coming by. But then, through the little window in the door, I caught sight of Sorab's Amuk Ashkan in the kitchen, pacing back and forth in and out of view. I knocked on the back door. Allahu Abba Aga Rizai. Allahu Abba Aga Darius, he said. But there was sadness in his voice, and he wasn't smiling. Sorab's uncle had the kind of face that looked wrong without a smile. It is good to see you. He stood back to let me in. I slipped off my Vans and set them against the door. There was no sign of Sorab. Is everything okay? The other Mr. Rizai sighed, not an exasperated sigh, but a sad one. It made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Come in. He took my shoulder and led me into the living room. Mrs. Rizai sat slumped on the couch, looking like she had just strode inside from a battlefield, leaving behind a trail of corpses in true Klingon fashion. Her hair was black flames, licking the air around her. Her makeup normally so careful, was wild and smeared. Her chest heaved. She was sobbing. I felt terrible for thinking of her like a Klingon. I was a complete and utter D-bag. Sorab had his arms wrapped around her, like he could keep her from flying apart if he squeezed tight enough. At first I thought he was shaking with the effort, but fat, sloppy tears were pouring down his cheeks too. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. Sorab, John. Mavash, Darius is here. Mavash, Razai moaned. It was the worst sound I had ever heard in my life. It was the sound someone makes when they're being stabbed in the heart. Sorab took his mom's hand, gently uncurling her manicured fingers and weaving them with his own. He rested his chin on his mom's head and held her tighter. I felt so useless. My palms were sweating on Sorab's box, smudging the wrapping paper. Can I make some tea or something? I knew it was stupid as soon as I had said it. Sorab's head snapped up. Go away, Darius. His voice was as sharp as a knife. Sorry, I just... Get out. My stomach inverted itself. Sorab, Aga said softly. He spoke in Farsi, but Sorab argued back, his voice rising in pitch and volume until it started cracking. Sorab's uncle shook his head and led me back to the kitchen. His hands shook as he filled the kettle. Here. I set Sorab's cleats on the counter and grabbed the Rizai's tea out of the drawer to the right of the stove. I swallowed and swallowed, but I couldn't get rid of the pulsing lump in my throat. What's wrong? I whispered. I couldn't make my voice work properly. Ashkan Rizai opened his lips to speak, but then pressed them back together as they trembled. He was crying too. It's my dad. Sorab hovered in the doorway, radiating fury. His jaw clenched and unclenched. He's dead. I wished I could time travel. I wished I could unravel everything and make it not true. Amu. Sorab said something in Farsi to his uncle, who looked like his knees were about to buckle. He used that same knife-sharp voice he used on me. Agar's eyes shook his head and went back into the living room. What do you want, Darius? I'm sorry, I squeaked. The lump was still there. What happened? Sorab's face burned like a brand new star. I could almost hear him grinding his teeth. They say he was stabbed in prison. Oh my God, I said. Oh my God. Sorab's eyes drilled into me. He jerked his chin at the countertop. What is that? I swallowed and picked up the box. I got it for you. Sorab stared at me like I was speaking Klingon. What is it? Shoes. Cleats for football? You came here to give me shoes? The lump had turned into sand. I was getting squeakier by the second. Yeah, for our game today. Sorab's eyes flashed. He smacked the shoebox out of my hands and then shoved me. He didn't push me hard, but I stumbled back because I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting the look in his eyes. Get out. Go away. Leave. But Sorab cut me off. You are so selfish. My father's dead and you come over to play football. Sorab kicked the box of cleats across the kitchen. I'm sorry, I said. You're always sorry, God. My heart felt like a warp core about to lose magnetic containment and breach. The sand in my throat had spread to my eyes. Stop crying. You're always crying. Pidarsag, nothing bad has ever happened to you. You do nothing but complain. You've never had anything to be sad about in your life. I couldn't speak. I just stood there blinking and crying. Go away, Darius, she said. And then he said, no one wants you here. No one wants you here. Sorab turned and left, slamming the living room door behind him, and then he screamed. His voice shattered like glass. Everything he said was true. No one wants you here. I knew it was true. I stumbled out the back door. No one wants you here. I ran. Page 280. First Best Destiny. My socks crunched over gravel and concrete. I had left my shoes at Sorab's house. I couldn't go back for them. And I couldn't go back to Mamu's either. I just kept running. I was a coward. Sorab had left that off his list. Clouds had rolled in off the mountains, casting the whole of Yazid in gauzy gray light. Without the sun, the old houses weren't blindingly khaki anymore. They were brown and dirty and sand-worn. There was litter everywhere, white plastic Lavoshak wrappers and empty plastic bottles crusted yellow with dried-out dew, scrunched up sun-faded newspapers and pictures of my new unfortunate namesake, the real Ayatollah, fronting up at the gray sky. I didn't like Iran anymore. I wanted to go home, to Portland, not to Amu's. I kept thinking about Sorab, about his father, how he would never see him again. I thought about Stephen Kellner, how sometimes I wished I saw him less. I thought about how selfish I was. I really hated myself. My foot was bleeding. I had sliced my heel when I climbed the chain link fence to our spot in the park. We were supposed to celebrate Sizda Bidar there. I didn't think that was going to happen anymore. From the Jama Mosque, the azan sounded, piercing the quiet afternoon. All across Yazid, people faced the Qibla to pray, a titanic multicellular entity focused on the same moment in space-time. My throat clamped up, a compression wave that traveled down my chest and into my stomach. Another containment failure. I wiped my face against my Team Millie jersey, the one Sorab got me for Nowruz. No one had ever gotten me a gift like Sorab had, one that showed he understood me perfectly, one that made me feel like I belonged. No one had ever invited me to play soccer or hang around on rooftops or stand around a ping pong table eating lettuce. No one ever made me feel like it was okay to cry or bumped shoulders with me and made me smile. I shook so hard I thought the bathroom was going to lose molecular cohesion and collapse into a vibrating pile of dust. I was never going to stop crying. Soab was right about me. Soab was right about everything. I crossed my elbows over my knees and buried my face in the little hollow I had made. I wished I had the One Ring so I could have vanished. I wished I had a cloaking device so no one would ever find me. I wished I could just disappear forever. Darius? It was impossible. How had Stephen Kellner located me? The chain link fence rattled as he hoisted himself up. There you are. Hey. My throat didn't work right. I sounded like I had swallowed a pineapple with its skin on. Dad wiped his palms on his pants and sat down beside me, so close our elbows bumped. I scooted away so we weren't touching. We were worried about you. Sorry. Mr. Rezai said you left Sorab's house hours ago. Have you been up here the whole time? I shrugged. Dad rested his hand on the back of my neck, but I shook him off. He told us what happened. About Sorab's dad? Yeah, and about you and Sorab. I felt another containment failure coming on. I couldn't let Stephen Kellner see me cry. So I said, what made you look for me here? Dad nodded up at the Jama Mosque. This seemed like the kind of place you would like. I bit my lip and blinked. Don't cry, Darius. Dad tried to wrap his arm around me, but I leaned away. I can't help it, okay? Dr. Howell likes to say that depression is anger turned inward. I had so much anger turned inward I could have powered a warp core, but without the proper magnetic field strength it exploded outward instead. I couldn't sit down anymore, even though my foot hurt when I put weight on it. Sometimes I can't help crying, okay? Sometimes bad shit happens. Sometimes people are mean to me and I cry. Sorry for being such a target. Sorry for disappointing you again. I'm not disappointed. I snorted. I just want to make sure you are healthy. Your illness can run away with you before you even know it. No, you just want me to be like you. You want me to ignore it when people are mean to me, when Trent bullies me, when Sora... I swallowed. You don't want me to feel anything at all. You just want me to be normal, like you. I picked up a jagged piece of roof and hurled it off into the empty park. My chest was about to explode, hurling matter and antimatter out until they annihilated everything nearby. You won't even watch Star Trek with me anymore, I whispered. I'll never be good enough for you. All my anger had fled, imploding back into my chest, slipping down the event horizon of the churning supermassive black hole inside me. Slingshot maneuver. Dad's face had turned red and blotchy. Darius, he sighed and uncrossed his long legs to stand up. You have always been good enough for me. I loved you from the first moment I saw your little hands on the ultrasound and felt your little feet kicking in your mom's belly. I loved you the first time I got to hold you and look into your beautiful brown eyes and know you felt safe in my arms. Dad's hands twitched like he wished I was still a baby he could hold. And I've loved you more every day, watching you grow up, watching you grow into yourself, watching you learn to cope with a world I can't always protect you from, but I wish I could. He cleared his throat. Being your dad is my first best destiny. It wasn't true. How could he say that? Remember those stories you used to tell me? I sniffled. Remember when I was little? Of course. He closed his eyes and smiled. I loved putting you to bed. Then why did you stop if you loved it so much? Dad bit his lip. You remember that? I remember. Dad sighed and folded himself back down to sit on the ledge of the roof. He glanced up at me but didn't hold my eyes, just patted the spot beside them. I sat down, but farther away from him. Dad looked up like he was going to speak, but then looked at his hands and swallowed. His Adam's apple bopped up and down, up and down. You're wrong. I want you to feel things, Darius, but I'm scared for you. You have no idea how scared. I take my eyes off you one moment, and if it's the wrong moment, you could be drowning in depression, bad enough to do something. And I can't protect you from that, no matter how hard I try. I'm not going to hurt myself, Dad. I nearly did. All the atmosphere on the rooftop fled, blown away by Dad's explosive admission. You what? When you were 7, my meds weren't doing their job, and I got to thinking about how you and your mother would be better off without me. Oh, I got so bad I was thinking about it all the time. Dr. Howell put me on a pretty strong tranquilizer. It made me into a zombie. That's why I couldn't tell you stories. I could barely tell the time of day. I didn't know. I lost myself for a long time, Darius. I didn't like who I became on those pills, but they saved my life. They kept me here for you and your mom. And by the time I was doing better and Dr. Howell tapered me off, your sister was born, and things were different. She was a baby, she needed me, and I didn't know if you even wanted stories anymore, if you were ever going to forgive me. Dad, suicide isn't the only way you can lose someone to depression. Dad looked up at me again. There were no walls between us. And it kills me that I gave it to you, Darius. It kills me. There were tears in his eyes, actual human tears. I had never seen my father cry before, and due to some harmonic resonance, I started crying too. Dad scooted closer to me, and when I didn't scoot away, he wrapped his arms around me and pulled me down to rest his chin on top of my head. When had I gotten taller than Stephen Kellner? I'm so sorry, son. I love you so much. I let Dad hold me, like that tiny potato sack version of myself sleeping on his chest when I was a baby. You're okay, he murmured. No, I'm not. I know. He rubbed my back up and down. It's okay not to be okay. Dad and I stayed and watched the sunset, gilding the turquoise minarets of the Jama Mosque for a few breathtaking moments before plunging Yazid into twilight. Dad let me talk about Sohrab and what he had said. He let me be sad. You really love Sohrab, huh? He's the best friend I ever had. Dad looked at me for a long moment, like he knew there was more, but he didn't ask. Instead, he pushed the hair off my forehead, kissed me there, and rested his chin on top of my head. Maybe he knew, without me saying it out loud, that I wasn't ready to talk about more. Maybe he did.